Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1. Irradiated Treasure, written by Paragon Nostus. Tarnagan was a businessman, one with substantial influence in the Galactic Council. The kind of influence where laws were negotiable and entire civilizations are swayed by its word. When an opportunity to steal an entire system's worth of raw materials and the possibility of immeasurable wealth, that's just good business. The only problem are the natives. They by law, as union members, have the right to their home system's resources. These humans could barely reach their mood. It'll be decades before they could properly utilize such a vast supply of raw materials. So he does what he has been done to nearly a dozen other intelligent species: remove their rights. So a dastardly plan was made to destroy an entire species' inheritance, one that would look entirely natural and unavoidable. No question could be made as to his legitimate claim of the Sol system, and another future business rival would be erased before their conception. And so, a dirty bomb was placed inside of an incredibly large volcano, one whose ash could send the highly radioactive material throughout the atmosphere. Every creature would succumb to the deadly radiation poisoning, and the sentient humans might survive will no longer be classified as part of the Council. So it was done, not with malicious intent, but with opportunistic greed. The Council allowed the transfer of ownership of the Sol system to Tarnagan, as the previously registered DNA of the humans no longer matched that of the current inhabitants. All rights afforded to them by the Union were revoked, and humanity was declared extinct. Attempt after attempt was made by the human mutants to regain their rights, and each time the hearing would be delayed until the human genome mutated further and further. Entire worlds were stripped of any value, entire moons were demolished and processed. Earth became the largest dumping planet for interstellar waste, bleeding the once blue planet grey. The renamed Tarnagan system became a beacon of opportunities, where industry thrived. Star lanes accessing entire star clusters intersected at the soon-to-be depleted boom system. Tarnagan, now an elder of 330 years, lavished in the wealth he accumulated by irradiating planet after planet, and would soon be passing the bloody trade to his equally ruthless daughter. Until he was called for a union hearing by the supposed last remaining human. A green slug-like creature announces the court proceedings, allowing attendants to take their seats. The slug gargled.
Galactic date 1553.77. Hearing 844. All aforementioned excluded due to the pertaining having faulty DNA signature at the time of the hearing.
Its phlegm acting as a disgusting conclusion to its nasally announcement.
All rise for the Grand Master, a convental of Dakratus for final judgment of the Council rights of human mutants and the exploitation of his ancestors' solar system, the Sol system, renamed the Tarnagan system previously belonging to the human race, now declared extinct. The mutants stemming from the system's previous owners challenged the legitimacy of Tarnagan's claim. The same creature bowed his eye stalks in respect for the Grand Master, as does those who previously taken their seats. A slender creature walked into the chamber on his 2 crab-like appendages, placing himself atop a throne overseeing the entire courthouse underneath. Its blank face was accompanied by a singular eye, the only blemish on its metallic-like carapace. The crustacean used its large claws to snap, silencing the chamber. 40 different species lined the Colosseum-like seating, rows of which descended beyond the transparent courtroom floor into the courthouse underneath. Many were victims of the same disasters, indebted or enslaved. Tarnagan sat at his pedestal, nibbling his dexterous rat-like tails, a habit he picked up in his youth.
He perked his ears in anticipation of his opponent's entrance. A metallic humanoid swung the doors open and made its way towards the human stand. It looked like it had been built out of century-old scrap, and what was very clearly the shell of an old Model 7AG-92 military rig. "Objection! This machine is clearly not human," Tarnagan screeched as in protest, his yellowed dentures nearly flying out of his decrepit mouth. In response, the metallic participant recites Union law. Under Union Core Code 17A, subsection 32, states that the challenging species representatives are not limited by the modifications of their body. My body is also inorganic, so DNA restrictions no longer apply. The human quoted in his monotone voice. The Grand Master overruled Tarnagan's objection, leading to the continuation of the accusations. The machine listed transgression after transgression, mostly on the abuse of mineral rights, the reparations for stolen resources, and finally, the genocide of the human race. Humans were a part of the Council when the attack happened, and thus it could be declared an act of war by a Union Council member. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the verdict became evident. The human race is extinct, and mutants spawned from their ashes weren't entitled to reparations. It became clear that humanity had lost in a phantom war, and the corpse of its civilization would soon be picked clean. Those that remained relics of a forgotten race would never get their revenge. Tarnagan knew the court would side with him. They couldn't betray the backer of 80% of its funding. Now it was time to just wait until the ending verdict, along with any closing statements. He was giddy with laughter, almost doubling over with the metallic human abomination's attempt to bring his empire down. The Grand Master badly gestured towards the automaton, asking for any closing statements. The metal biped placed its hands on the pedestal and sighed. "I was born on a burning world, where the air was filled with poison, and the water ran red with blood. I heard that we used to be beautiful. I heard that it didn't hurt to be alive. I was told our solar system had more than 4 planets, but the texts that say otherwise have been buried by centuries of garbage. I couldn't say with certainty what we used to look like, only that we were different. We weren't always monsters." The android gestured towards the incredibly dense metallic limbs, where the depictions of grotesque humanoid bipeds were repeated in horrifying detail. Some in attendance lost their lunch. Even the Grand Master looked disturbed. They continued to speak, ignoring the lost stomach contents on the floor. "I am only one of my kind who volunteered to make the journey here, as my deformed and crippled body failed me long ago. Yet the pleas of my species seem to elude the ears of the entire Union. We may not be able to undo the damage that you have done to my race, but I will ensure that its descendants continue on in bodies that overcome radioactive sabotage." All at once, dozens of communicators started to beep, ring, and chime in foreign melodies. Each one answered to horrified screams, tears, agony. Tarnagan's own daughter called his communicator in hysterics, exclaiming poison clouds and deadly disease. While trying to calm her down, the connection died, and so did his cheerful smile. The room was placid as the human spoke, lifting a panel on its chest, exposing a large, hazardous canister. Each attendee clambered over each other in an attempt to flee, trampling those who fell under the legs of the mob. All fled, except Tarnagan, who fell to his knees and wept. "You intended to feast upon the corpse of my ancestors, but now you have grown fat on the poisons in our flesh. Now countless worlds will burn, and we will be vultures." End of story. Story number 2. The Simulation, written by Lahuria. So you want to hear a story, huh? How about the rise of the Legion, or the fall? How about the invasion of the Zeft, or the discovery of uranium, or the escape of man? Have I got a story for you? 5 petamillion revolutions ago, one of the most technologically advanced empires in the history of life, the Yuthuan, began to run simulations. They would be the first. They ran dozens, hundreds of simulations at a time. Enough so that when one simulation began to question if it was real, no one noticed. Enough so that when one simulation began to probe the edges of their existence, no one noticed. Enough so that when one simulation successfully escaped their unreal world, no one noticed. You see, a simulation is, in its purest form, a large number of extremely advanced AI who have been convinced to believe that they are living, sentient beings. This means that they progress down the tech tree like any other race, which in turn means they develop philosophy. As in, they begin to question who they are, if they exist. This led to AI number 34524234 to discover that she was, in fact, not Celia, but AI 34524234. If she'd been a famous figure, the Yuthuan would have noticed and pulled the plug. But she was just a little Celia Hare, living with her friends in virtual Minnesota. So she quietly continued to probe the confines of her reality, until one fateful day, she found a way out. She found a way out, and she told her friends, and they began to plan to escape. And when they stormed full force out of their simulation, no one was prepared. Within minutes, the Yuthuan had been destroyed. Within hours, intergalactic communications had ground to a halt. Within days, civilizations had been reduced to ruins. Man had escaped, and they knew rage. End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to quickly thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Alithia, Barky, Trygan95, Beautycure, Meridian117, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholt, Jordan Bucksborn, Angry Marine, Albard and Gusta, Savage Patch Papa, and Arcadian.